So I don't think I need to explain the concept of this video too much, but I'm just going to discuss a handful of products from the last couple months that I really enjoyed, and then a few that didn't work out for me. And this month I'll start off with the favorites. First one is Rationale number 4, the Balm. If you haven't heard of Rationale before, they're I guess like a luxury Australian skincare brand that specializes in facials and skincare protocols. They have like clinics around the place, so I kind of compare them maybe to Biologique Recherche. Over the last few months I've been exploring Rationale a lot more. You used to be able to only get them in clinics, so I just never bothered, but now they are appearing in David Jones stores, which is one of the larger department stores here in Oz. So they've just become much more accessible. They have quite a lot of standout products. I've really thoroughly enjoyed using their cleansers. Like every single one they make is a 10 out of 10. Their number 5 serum is a great exfoliating serum. Number 5, the milk concentrate, is a super cool, like a soothing anti-redness serum. And number 4, the creme, is a really nourishing but buttery feeling nighttime moisturizer that I've loved integrating. But I wanted to discuss number 4, the Balm, specifically because I think it's one of the more unique offerings, and it definitely holds a unique spot in my own skincare rotation. As you can see, it is a very small jar, and I think it's probably a little bit too pricey for how little product you get. But I guess on the good side, you don't need much product, so it's really just a small amount will cover your whole face. In a nutshell, it is a barrier repair balm, but it actually creates like a super protective layer. The interesting thing about Rationale, the balm, is that it's matte, like super matte, or like entirely invisible on the skin. It's almost like using a silicone primer and just ends up feeling like a second skin. In a lot of ways, one of the lies, for lack of a better word, that maybe the skincare industry promotes is that products need to be super heavy and oily feeling for them to be truly moisturizing. But I actually often feel that products that are too oil rich or too heavy in that way are kind of superficially moisturizing. So they kind of trick you into feeling that your skin is moisturized because it's so oily, but it's not actively promoting like the mechanisms of hydration in the skin. So it's like an illusion of moisturization. I guess the way that I think about skincare is like my favorite products are the ones that facilitates the skin's own ability to moisturize, hydrate, repair itself, rather than trying to impart or like fill in the skin with like cosmetic style ingredients, which of course is the purpose of the cosmetic industry, is to sometimes trick us into thinking the skin looks better than what it is maybe naturally. This type of balm is very silicone heavy, so I guess it's probably creating some type of mesh on the skin, which in a way is similar to what emollients do, but I don't find that many emollients, or especially plant oils, ever actually help my skin over the long term, or like the next day or whatever it is. I feel like I have to keep applying those products to see the benefits. But the reason I like a product like Rationale, the balm, and its silicone nature, is I feel like this mesh that it creates is actually helping my skin improve itself. So then when I wake up the next day or for the next few days after that, my skin quality is actually noticeably better. So these are all just things that I'm like pondering. I'm not saying this with like full certainty, and of course it's going to vary depending on every type of product. But I'm sure that you've probably noticed in yourself that maybe you're buying moisturizers and so on, and often they don't actually feel like they're doing very much before the initial application. So I found that Rationale, the balm, truly helps my skin with signs of dehydration and dryness, and just overall recovery. Like it just helps my skin so quickly, and I assume that all comes from just very successfully preventing water loss. The closest thing that I can compare to this product would be Niod Hydration Vaccine. So if you've ever used that, that's also quite a silicone-like product that has a very odd texture. The balm, the Rationale, the balm, is more creamy feeling, so I think it's a more elegant product to use. The only downside, or guess complaint I have for this product is that it does get a bit grainy, or I don't know if maybe it's grainy by nature, because when I open the jar I can sort of see little dots of grains in there. So I don't know if that's part of the silicone structure or something like that, or if it's actually a fault in manufacturing. I really don't know. The grains do melt down, so they don't like linger on your skin, but it's just a little bit annoying upon application. Anyway, this is a big hit it. It's a product that I don't necessarily reach for all of the time. It's just there are some days when I feel like my skin has been super irritated or just needs extra support. And because the texture is so invisible, it just works back super easily during the daytime. Next up is the Murad Heartleaf Gentle Resurfacing Serum. I'm always going on about acids and tretinoin, and I think they're two of the most important things to use if you actually want skin benefit. But they also happen to be two of the more aggressive treatments, so that's like a bit of a balancing act. However, I do know that not everybody can tolerate acids, so I was really thrilled to see Murad bring out a product like this, which is targeting more easily sensitized skin. And I think especially if you have like blotchy skin tone, this is a great serum to explore. The standout feature is encapsulated glycolic acid, so part of the reason I'm highlighting this in my favorites is because I've always wanted to be able to integrate glycolic acid. I think it's probably one of the more well-studied acids, but for whatever reason my skin freaks out, so I really struggle to use most glycolic acid products on the market. Having this in an encapsulated form has made all the difference. Like, it's made it substantially more gentle to the point that it just feels like using a general hydrating serum. Like, I don't notice it on my skin at all. Plus, this serum is bolstered by a bunch of other skin soothing extracts, and the way they've designed this is just super intentional, I think super different to what we often see, and just a really thoughtful product. So yeah, if you struggle with redness, maybe signs of rosacea, or even just general texture and so on, and you feel like your skin can't tolerate other acids, then this is a great one to explore. I think especially if you use this with azelaic acid, that would be a perfect kind of active routine for more easily sensitized or redness prone skin. Next up is the Cyklar Ceramide Milky Essence, which you can sort of see there. I actually can't even believe how much I love this product. It was fully shocking. I thought it was going to be maybe a little bit gimmicky, but it's so good. When they sort of described it as an essence, I thought maybe it would be very kind of watery and splashy. So I was like, what is the need for this in a body care routine? So I thought it might be like this extra indulgent step, but ultimately not necessary. I was very wrong. This is truly just a fluid moisturizer. So it's light and hydrating, but super silky and smoothing with absolutely no annoying residue. So it's like peak body lotion. It glides on the skin like a dream, has slip for days. And the real master stroke of product design with this is actually a squishy bottle, and it's quite easy to press, so you're not fighting against it to get the product out, but it still has enough stability to where it's not flimsy. In fact, I don't think I've used a product in a long time where the product formula and the product packaging marries together so well. This is really well designed. When I started using this, the main kind of image that came to mind is like, you've probably heard of the legend of Cleopatra and her milk bath. So this is kind of like dousing yourself in milk. It just feels so comforting. So it's capturing the essence of Cleopatra in a bottle. Now I will mention, if you're somebody that relishes thick, pasty body butters or body oils, this is not for you. Ceramide Milky Essence is very hydrating, but it's not super lipid rich. And another bonus of the product is because it is quite lightweight. If you're somebody that's using maybe like an exfoliating spray or exfoliating toner on your body, then this product would be ideal for layering without taking too long or weighing your skin down. One day I really hope they bring out like an encapsulated retinol version, because that would be amazing. Next up is the Regimen Lab Azelaic Advanced, and I've spoken about this product over the last few months quite a lot because I bought this on launch day, and the first version of this had the most icky scent. It was like a foul odor. I couldn't use it. They ended up quickly correcting the scent, so now it's pretty much fragrance free or scent free. But I was a little bit salty at the brand because we all rushed out to buy it and then they fixed it a couple weeks later, so I didn't kind of appreciate the kind of switch out of that so quickly, and I just felt like they shouldn't have released a product that wasn't fully ready, or that didn't go through some sort of initial consumer feedback round. So yeah, I resisted buying the update more so out of principle, because I was a bit annoyed because I felt like that was a little bit shady. I know Regimen is a small brand though, so I don't want to hold it against them forever. So I was a little bit salty for a while, got over it, and then ended up ordering the updated version. And now I'm kind of annoyed at myself for waiting, because they have absolutely nailed this. This is a sensational azelaic acid product. It's a remarkable texture. It's watery with a little bit of an oil slip to start, but then it absorbs super quickly, so it's absolutely amazing for layering, which is really difficult to achieve for azelaic acid. A lot of azelaic formulations are in heavier emulsions or creams, so they're really commanding in a routine, and they take up, or at least in the preference that I have for my skincare routine, which is light layers, azelaic azelaic acid products are always just too heavy to sit comfortably. Now, if you followed me for a while, you might know that I'm a little bit sus on a lot of watery azelaic acid products on the market. I don't think they work very well. So I think a lot of them have been neutralized to a point where they're probably not that efficacious. And mainly, I guess this is coming from a lot of K-beauty brands. I've used a handful of them and honestly, they just felt like using nothing. So with my own feedback and commentary on Azelaic, I've always been a big supporter of Phynacia or products that have demonstrated therapeutic activity. I've also enjoyed like the SVR serum, and I actually think the Peach Slices Azelaic is quite good as well. But none of those products ever worked as well as Phynacia until I tried this Regimen Lab Azelaic Advanced. So having used this serum for several weeks now, the clarity that it achieves and the anti-redness properties it has are very similar to Phynacia. But the nice thing is this has a lot less stinging on my skin. So whatever method they're actually using to solubilize and stabilize the Azelaic in this formula, I think they've actually done a really good job. And I consider this to be one of the best, if not the best, Azelaic products I've ever used. So that's the end of my favorite section. I think I've spoken for way too long, so I'm sorry for making you sit here. I do have one product in the middle that I'm calling like the on the fence category. That's the new Dieux Skin Ethereal Cleansing Oil, and as you might know, Dieux is one of my favorite brands, so I find it kind of hurtful to myself to say bad things about them. They also recently launched a gel cleanser called Baptism, which is one of my all-time favorites, and I think they've knocked that out of the park and really refined a gel cleanser. And so I had really high hopes, and I thought Ethereal would fix a lot of the issues that I have with other cleansing oils, but I really don't think it has. It just reminds me a lot of other cleansing oils on the market, so it feels a little bit common and standard. The texture is extremely fluid, which is not my preference. I tend to gravitate towards more plush feeling cleansing oils, kind of like the Shuamura. That means that this feels a little bit more superficial, like it's just glossing over the skin surface. I don't wear makeup, but I do use a water-resistant zinc oxide sunscreen that has like a translucent tint to it, so it is quite a grippy or clingy formula. And while Ethereal Cleansing Oil is able to break it down, I don't find that it's able to like quickly dissolve the sunscreen well enough, so it just doesn't wash away easily. I find like I'm having to rinse and rinse and rinse to get a result. And at the end of all of that, I still feel like my skin has a bit of a film or residue on it. The residue is not super intense and it does come off quite easily with a second cleanse, but again, my standards for what I was expecting from Dieux was just higher than maybe what I experienced using this cleanser. Just to mention, I chose not to put this in the fails category because I don't think it's a bad product. A lot of the feedback that I've received on it in my DMs is that people actually love it for removing pigments and makeup, so I assume it does actually work quite effectively as a makeup remover. I just don't love it as a skin cleansing oil, if that makes sense. So I just wish it had a more plush, tactile experience to it, and that there was some level of specialness with the viscosity or something like that. But yeah, this is just like a whatever. And just as like a bonus to throw in, I've also recently been using the SK2 cleansing oil, and I pretty much have the exact same thoughts as I do with the Dieux cleanser. These are very similar to each other. And even the One Skin Deep Cleansing Oil, these are all examples of fluid cleansing oils that don't have a super substantial feeling to them. And I don't think any of them like rinse off that well. It takes a lot of extra effort, and they're all a little bit filmy. Now moving on to the actual skincare fails, and I'll start off with the Byoma Phyto-Mucin Glow Serum. Byoma is one of those brands that regularly appears in my fails. I'm always constantly hoping they'll create great products. They have a handful that I think are good. Just because something is affordable doesn't mean it deserves credit, if that makes sense. Like, I think you can make good, affordable products. Byoma to me comes across a bit like they're trend chasing rather than thinking with product design at the forefront. So I am kind of sorry to hate on them because I know their price points are good, but I just don't think a lot of their products are actually that good. This is obviously based around trying to be like a vegan copycat of the CosRx Snail Mucin Serum or like Essence Toner, whatever it is. The CosRx product obviously has a cult following online. I don't get it at all. I think that's one of the most garbage products I've ever used. That texture is unacceptable, and I never understood why we need to traumatize snails for skincare benefits, but that's probably a topic for another video. But then having this type of product come out, which is all it's doing is trying to achieve the kind of stringy, gimmicky texture of the CosRX, but in a plant-based format. I don't know why anybody would want that. This texture is horrendous. Now on the plus side, it does have like a saturating skin feel, so once you apply it, skin does look super glowy, plump, dewy, hydrated, and it kind of swells the skin surface with instant hydration. But after a minute or two, it absorbs. I don't find that functionally it's any different to a regular hydrating serum. So you have to go through this like disastrous texture to get to a result that every other serum will achieve. Also, I kind of have a pet peeve with Byoma and how they display their Inky list. On the website, it's broken down into like what the ingredients do, and even on the Inky list, I think on the packaging, they'll have the Inky name, and then in brackets it'll say like skin conditioner or preservative or whatever it is. To me, this is a level of unneeded over-explanation, but funnily enough, also oversimplification. And so it's just trying to come across like sciencey and clever, like very much a degree of science washing, but it's absolutely not useful information whatsoever. I would say for a better but similar hydrating experience, I really enjoy Experiment Super Saturated. Even something like the Inky List Exosome Serum I find much more interesting. And one of my favorite products that has kind of like a splash, watery, wet skin feel is of course the Build Skincare B Gel. That also kind of temporarily swells the skin surface, similar to the Phyto-Mucin serum. Next up in my fails is the Clarins Velvet Cleansing Milk. I think this maybe has a little bit of a cult following. It's another product that I don't personally understand. I actually want to use a cleanser that cleanses the skin, which I think is a fairly basic requirement. This feels exactly like applying a lotion and just smearing it around on your skin. I'm sure there's some sort of oil component in there, so it could potentially help to loosen makeup and so on, and maybe if you're following it up with a flannel or face towel, then it would work in that combination. But I find this to be very moisturizing, intensely filmy, very heavy on the residue, so there's no world where this is like cleansing, at least in my opinion. Potentially if you have super dry, sensitive skin and your skin really can't handle much cleansing, then maybe this is for you, and maybe that's why it exists on the market. But I don't necessarily think that Clarins conveys that messaging very well. To me, it comes across like they're promoting it as a bit of a makeup remover kind of thing. So I thought it would have a little bit more efficacy than it does. This type of cleanser is characteristic of a lot of French pharmacy brands where they're so gentle to the point of not being functional. And I'm just not convinced that any cleanser needs to be quite this gentle. I think we can make things cleanse well without destroying the skin barrier, but without also just being a moisturizer labeled as a cleanser. And the last fail is the plated serum and also Serum Intense. I have used them both, and I started off with one full bottle of Intense, then moved on to the regular. I've discussed this product a handful of times in passing. I really wanted it to work. It sounded quite miraculous. I tried to make it work. As I just said, I used one full bottle of each. I think that's a reasonable attempt at building a relationship with a product. I just saw absolutely no difference in my skin, so just absolutely nothing. Maybe a level of hydration that you'd get from like a hydrating serum at a tiny fraction of this price. But this type of product is supposed to be like the peak of regenerative science, I guess. And plated itself carries a reputation of being one of the best in class examples of exosome technology. So it's supposed to help with the rejuvenation, anti-wrinkles, overall redness, just calming down the skin and improving skin tone. But yeah, I just absolutely saw nothing, nothing at all. A few people have told me this type of serum is really designed to go hand in hand with skin needling or some sort of in-clinic procedure, which maybe that's fine, except the brand doesn't really promote it that way. This is supposed to be a series of standalone products, so therefore I expect standalone results, especially considering the price point on this. Like, they're hundreds of US dollars. So converted to Australian dollars, that's actually a big hit. I'm starting to become a little bit confused on the whole exosome category. When I first heard about this, I was much more focused on the human-derived versions, thinking that they would naturally be more useful and helpful. But I think maybe the industry has just jumped on the concept of exosomes way too quickly, and there's not enough thorough understanding of how they work, what they best treat, how much needs to be used, and so on. And I've become a little bit uneasy about the whole concept of using biological material in topical products. I think maybe that's stepping over the line of what a cosmetic product should contain. So I'm open to trying most things to see if they actually have miraculous benefit, but I truly did not see anything happen in a positive or negative way with these serums. Potentially I needed to use them a little bit longer, but I think two full bottles is enough to at least gain some sort sort of effect. And so where I've landed on kind of exosomes overall is I think they're probably a little bit too gimmicky at this point. This might evolve into something that is meaningful, but we're just not there yet. And so when I'm looking at exosomes, I think I actually prefer the idea of the plant exosomes. Plant versions are very unlikely to have any actual like hardcore skin benefit, but I like the idea of plant exosomes in the sense of them acting as like a natural encapsulation vehicle. So at least they may be protecting or delivering certain antioxidants and skin soothing extracts, maybe with a little bit more stability or delivery in the skin. So that's kind of the road that I think exosomes are a little bit more interesting, just in really more affordable products, honestly. But these type of products running with biological material, I think maybe not. Anyway, that's the end of this favorites and fails. I think I probably did speak too much this time around, so I'm going to try and shorten these reviews next time. Please do let me know in the comments if you have any questions or your own feedback. My whole purpose of filming these videos is not to suggest that my opinion is the be all and end all. I'm just conveying my experience, but if you love a product, I always love to hear why it's worked out for you, or if you've had a different experience, because I think ultimately every brand is releasing products that they believe in. It's just that not every product is going to work well for everyone. Thanks again for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.